Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Radiator Arms, the podcast that's as up to date as an AOL CD in the post.
And is also like looking into a landfill, because that's where they all are.
All right, and here with the theme tune, it's Will. I love that. We have to make a proper intro at some point. Yeah, especially for those that are watching. Hello, hello. And for those that are listening, hi. Hello. Is it me you're looking for?
Definitely not.
And this is what happens when we don't have Papa Ant to try and keep us on the straight and narrow. Those who are watching will notice we are this week, once again, a man down, as Ant has come down with a terrible case of old bastard.
Oh, honestly, he's slipped more discs than a DJ.
He really has. And so, Ant, thoughts and prayers with you, my darling. And he has left us, that is me, James, a.k.a. JayEmm, and Will, a.k.a. Will the Plank.
Will the Plank.
Here with your good people. Here to who knows? Look, this is what happens, right? This is what happens. He goes, we are like a trifecta, and we're one of these things that really shouldn't work, and yet somehow combine the elements, it does. So we're very grateful to him. But also, we're really thankful to all of you for listening. So that's why, even though he's not here, we still are. Do
we have a topic today?
No, not really.
No, not really.
I think that's never stopped us before.
No, I think we should just talk about what we've kind of been up to start with. What's been going on in your life in the past couple of weeks?
Well, I have been trying to get the fleet on the road. The weather is now properly nice and actually seems like it might hold for a little while. The last couple of years for me have been a little bit difficult because I've had a few things going on behind the scenes, some of which is lovely, happy stuff, some of which isn't. But from a professional standpoint, it's been really tricky because we've had a couple of pretty miserable summers here in Britain. May through nearly August were just sodden. I mean, I don't know how you found it, because obviously you can do some of your work inside, but for me, when the rain comes, look, I can work outside. I just don't like to, because it's miserable. You get damp, you get cold, you can make yourself sick if you're not careful. Also, if you're testing just about any kind of car, you can't really have that much fun in it, and certainly can't test properly a performance car. But also, the cameras won't stick to a wet car. So to try and get one on when it's raining, you've got to try and basically clean the car, and as you're cleaning the car, shield it, get the camera on, get it in, and hope no water got in there. So all around, it's just not really worth doing.
Yeah, there are two things I don't like being in life. One of them is sweaty and one of them is wet. And combining the both, working out in a kind of humid summertime is my idea of hell.
Yeah, it's not fun, is it? I mean, I have been harbouring a sort of an idea for a few years that if I could, I would love just for, maybe 1 or 2 months a year to disappear off somewhere a little bit warmer and sunnier, where I can also get some work done. Because if I can do the work, then that also means I can, maybe afford to go somewhere a little nicer or whatever. Because if work is technically paying for it, then, that's nice. And it also means that there's a little bit less stress because, I try not to film too much in December and January. So, I want Christmas with the family in December, and January, usually the weather's a bit miserable and damp and everything else, and the cars aren't really out. So if I could maybe take, let's say, February or so, it's a mixed month here, isn't it?
Yes.
This year it was quite nice, actually. But if I could take a month that normally might be a bit of a write-off and turn it into a month where I can do work, that lets me enjoy things a little bit more over the Christmas period. It's that self-employed thing, isn't it? You kind of always thinking about the next job and where the work can come from. And I'm very grateful that now the work is fairly regular, that I can sort of generally know that when I need to, I can get some filming done. But still, I like to try and not do too much and get a little bit back out of it, if that makes sense.
What's kind of good, actually, and something since we've been friends and I've spoken to you about how you film and do your videos, is you actually stockpile a good few of your videos, don't you, in the time for winter months?
Yeah, I do. Now, that's something that I've done for a very, very long time. So when I started the channel, I had this policy of not wanting to do more than 2 videos a week, but no less than 1.
Yes.
To get some regularity, and also to not then overload myself. So in the early days as well, it was a struggle to find stuff to film. So what I didn't want to do was maybe have a bunch of filming, especially when it's early on and you've got lots of ideas, then release all of them really quickly and then suddenly realize I've run out of ideas now. Obviously, I then, sort of a year or 2 in, got to the stage where I could regularly get people's cars to drive. And that made things a bit easier. But up until that point, yeah, it was a case of friends, family, everything else. And the way that insurance in Britain works, it's a lot harder to get like a motoring YouTube channel off the ground than it would be a lot of other places.
Yeah, because isn't in America they insure the vehicle, not the person, or something like that? Is that part of what it is?
Yeah, I mean, that's the case a lot of places around the world. You know, you insure the car, and then basically if you say someone, yeah, you can drive my car, they are insured.
Yeah.
Which is lovely. Here, unfortunately, it's a little bit more complicated. It didn't used to be. I mean, I do remember back in the 90s, people having policies on their cars, including nice cars, where anybody that you gave permission could drive it. But that kind of got ruined by the boy racer scene and things like that, and insurance companies deciding that, you know, people were finding loopholes that, to be honest, were pretty wide open and just taking advantage.
Well, it's like how for a while hot hatches became totally uninsurable by basically anybody, didn't they?
So yeah, so this week I've had the 430 and the 550 cleaned up. The 430's got some new looking alloys on it. It's now got the Lamborghini bronze on it, which I've been meaning to do since I got the car about 3 years ago, and that's now been done. Our good friend Ben, who was on the podcast recently, he's starting up in the world of valeting with a company called Mile by Mile. I'll put the links to that in the description down below. He's been doing amazing for me. Like, considering he's pretty new at it, he's doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, I came by yours the other day and saw him at work, and he was hard at it and focusing, and he looked like, well, he was doing the Celica, I think, was the one I saw him doing. I'll tell you what, I know he wasn't finished yet, but that was looking gorgeous already.
Oh, the interior, I did not know that those carpets were black.
Yeah. Yeah,
he's done a really, really good job. Wet vac it, everything. Like, it's fantastic.
Do you know what? Good. I'm going to get him to do the Maestro at some point. You know, we're going to make it happen, because the seats on that I've never wet vacked, and I've never done the interior properly. There's spider poop and all sorts of things on it. You know, from the back, where I've basically cleared it out, and it needs somebody who's good at it going over it. So that's something I'm going to be doing. If you're listening, Ben, you've got that coming.
Yeah, that's your punishment.
That's
for your hard
punishment
work.
for your hard work.
So yeah, the F12 is getting retrieved this afternoon, then going off for its MOT and service, because that hasn't really been driven properly for about since before Christmas time. We're recording now in April, so other things we've got going on. So this will be happening shortly after the release of this. We've got our curry night coming up on April the 16th. I've also organised the first pub evening, which is going to be at the Half Moon over in Belsham St Paul, which is kind of on the Suffolk-Essex border, and that's always a great thing to go to, because hopefully if we've got this kind of weather, we just stay outside the whole evening. But we also want your input, because we want to try and take the Radiator Arms out and about. We want to go places, meet people, go to events, maybe even host some of our own events. And, you know, we're all basically in the East Anglia area, but we want to kind of go a little bit further afield, because we know that not everybody is able to travel. Although, okay, this is no word of a lie, we have a guy coming for curry night from Seattle.
Has he? He hasn't flown. He's not flying over specifically for this, is he?
No. It's a very good curry that they do, but I'm not entirely sure that it's, you know, fly from Seattle. I'm not sure that such a curry
exists. Yeah. Unless you're Dave Lister, of course, and any curry's worth flying for.
Now there's a reference. That'll weed out the Brits, won't it, for everybody else? People are like, who the heck is Dave Lister? Did he do some Jaguars? You know. So enough of me. What have you been up to, Will?
Well, I had a good time with the Maestro recently, and do you know why?
No, I don't.
Because it passed its third MOT in my hands, and this time the past of them, 0 advisories.
Never. Take it back.
No, it
Get your money's
happened.
worth.
It happened. In fact, the tester was saying, I can't repeat exactly what it said, there's a bit of swearing, but it was one of the nicest blank examples he's ever seen in one of these cars. He was amazed at how solid it is underneath.
I once knew somebody that had a Bugatti Veyron kit car. Actually, I'm not sure kit car is the right word to describe it. It was a replica. And to be quite honest, at a little bit of distance, it looked quite good. I was, however, reliably informed that it wasn't particularly good to drive because it was made up of various different parts, none of which were meant to be a Bugatti Veyron. And I was told the story of how when it was SVA'd, which is the process here whereby if you've built a car yourself, you take it to a tester and they give it a very thorough test, make sure that it's safe and, going to be okay on the road and everything else. This is what you go through if you build a Caterham, he built this thing and it went through to the SVA and it came through. Actually, no, he didn't build it himself. He had this car. It went through and said to the tester at the end, okay, so has it passed? And the tester said, to my great shame, yes. He's like, it's not a particularly safe car, but unfortunately not unsafe in any way that we test for. So I have to pass it.
Oh, that's brilliant. Do you know what? It's interesting, actually. I was talking to you the other day about how one of my dreams in life is to build my own kit car, build my own maybe Caterham or something like that. And it's quite funny because now on YouTube, there's videos of a few different people, I guess Caterham are getting that out at the moment, where people are building these kit cars from scratch, like 24, 48 hours and things like that. And I'm just sitting there thinking, that's what I've always wanted to do.
Richard Hammond did one, didn't he?
He did with his daughter. And I think a couple of Caterham Dave, I think it was, came down and helped. And there was a few other people from the smallest Coggan people. And that was quite a good watch, actually. I was looking at it thinking, I would love to do a thing like that one day.
Yeah, we could build it in here.
We actually probably could. I think we might just have to include a little shot of how big this room is. You can take that on your camera after and you can drop that in. And you actually could build a Caterham in here. It'll be like that story on, was it early Top Gear, where Richard Hammond, I think it was, came to visit a guy who built a kit car in his kitchen.
He did, didn't he?
He kept building it, and he realised that he got to the point where he couldn't get it out the door anymore.
Yeah.
So he kept building it. I think the wife left, the family left, the dog left, everything went with him. But he just kept building this kit car, and one day they cut the wall down to get it out.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
That is brilliant. That is the kind of thing I think that a lot of men aspire to do. I mean, not lose their marriages, perhaps, but, if you're going to lose it for something, it might as well at least be interesting like that.
That's obsession, isn't it?
That is obsession. And today as well, we also filmed a little video on the Golf, didn't we? Talking about my horrors with the Golf and everything I've spent on it and all of that. But one thing we were talking about is there's a little brochure over there. Do you think you can reach that brochure?
Yeah.
So,
look at this.
To give a little bit of the backstory of my Golf, I've known it essentially its entire life. I've worked on, my family's been on this area where my studio is since 2002. And my Golf is a 2002 car, and it was originally very close to where this area is. So the original owner, who had it from 2002 to 2014, sold it to the person who works next door to me. So for basically 10 years almost, I saw this car every day. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to buy it. And I still get flagged down by the original owner. It's a lovely, sweet couple who like to ask questions. How's the car going? How's this and that? About a car I've seen almost my entire life, basically. And the other day, they gave me this. And what I'm holding now, for those who are listening, is one of the original brochures from Volkswagen for the Golf estate for the 2005 model year. Now, it's not the 2002 model year, but the guy originally leased it, and 3 years later, he was thinking of replacing it with another one, but ended up keeping it. But he gave me this, and they kept it all this time, this little brochure. I wanted you to have a little look through it, James.
Oh, yeah, this is quite nice. See, car brochures are a sort of forgotten art, aren't they? I mean, the amount of money and time and everything they spent on these... I do collect them. I think you've seen some of them.
Yeah.
They're wonderful. I mean, yeah, like the humble Golf. See, VW actually, I give them some credit. They're really good with keeping some of their old stuff online. Oh, I love it. It's got some little notes and things on the back of it where they had like, the dealer they were maybe going to go to, like, bits of spec they were thinking of. I bought my friend Jack from number 27, one of these, but for Ferrari from like 1970, whenever, matching the year of his 308.
Yes.
The Influenzo. We must get him on the podcast at some point as well.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I've just been distracted by the old orange plastic CD clamshell case that you've got over there.
Do you want to know what is in that? That is a disc for Unreal Tournament 2004.
Brilliant.
Exactly.
That's amazing.
Exactly.
The temptation just to go off the rails and start talking about Unreal is unreal.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's interesting you talked about the dealer because I went to Brentwood the other day.
Oh, yeah.
And I drove past the dealer in Chelmsford where the car originally came from as well, because it was a kind of a semi-local car, an Essex car. And I didn't have time, but I wanted to stop and park it out front and get some photos of the dealership.
I think I know where that dealership is because, like most towns, Chelmsford has like the dealerships all sort of huddled together.
Yes.
And you've got Bentley and all that nearby.
Yeah, it was nearby. Yeah.
And I went there once to the Lamborghini dealership, which they also have. And I just so happened to be in the area. I was off having a meeting with somebody. I'm not typically down that way. And I knew that there was a Lamborghini dealership, which I think is technically the closest Lamborghini dealership to me. I don't know where the other one would be. There's not really many Lamborghini dealerships about.
Would London be one of them?
Yeah, there's probably an HRO in London. So it's one of these crazy things, right? So I was thinking about maybe buying an Aventador. And I thought, you know what? I keep hearing horror stories about how expensive they are to service and this, that, and the other. I thought, well, let's go in and ask a main dealer, because the main dealer, let's face it, is going to be worst case scenario, right? They're going to be the most expensive. So if they start quoting me prices that are, all right, yeah, they're not great, of course. You're talking about a V12 Lambo here, but that may be tolerable. Maybe you then get a better deal and you go to a specialist or whatever. It's sensible. And, sometimes these guys actually, main dealers get a lot of stick, but sometimes actually really good, decent, honest people, particularly with boutique-y little brands like Lamborghini. I had Ferrari Glasgow help me out recently when I had a bit of an issue with a press car, which was entirely my fault, and they were amazing. Did a lot in basically very little time with no notice. Lamborghini Edinburgh have been really, really good. They look after my friend Cal and his mate Scott, and I've been up there a few times. They've been really great. But I thought, let's pop to this dealership. It's an odd looking place. I turned up and it had the sort of feeling of a dealership that had either just opened or was just about to open or was closing down and the week after was going to move, Out the front, there were, I think, 5 black Urus. And you sort of sit there going, cool. So this is what Lamborghini has become, is it? All right. Because, if I want a black 4x4, I can go next door and buy one from Bentley, or I can go around the corner and buy one from Land Rover, Range Rover, or buy one from Jaguar or BMW or whatever. You're like, it's just nothing really remarkable about it. Inside, there was one car under a cover, which I think was just about due for a customer handover. And there was a Performante kind of tucked away in a corner behind a barrier. The service department looked like it had been closed down, although I'm pretty certain it wasn't. And I basically went in. There was nothing on the walls, at all, no photos or anything like that. It was all just a bit white and bland. And I went in and spoke to the sales guy and was like, oh, hello, I'm hoping to speak to somebody in service, whatever, and ask some questions about an Aventador or something like that. And I could tell that he was about to do a customer handover, so it was poor timing on my part. But he's basically like, well, service is kind of closed to the public at the minute. You'll have to come back another time. Oh, okay. All right. Cheers. And I just left. It was really depressing. Really, really depressing, because I'm like, you go into a Lamborghini dealership, you want nice stuff in there. You want cool things. You want funky art on the wall. And when I've been to other Lamborghini dealerships, that's exactly what they are. I want cars in there that are not there for sale, but they're just there because they're cool. You know,
Yeah.
like Lamborghinis, I think should be a dream factory for the 6-year-old and the 60-year-old. You know, that's what they should be like. But yeah,
Do you know what? I love a dealership that is kind of more the family run type. Now, I can't remember if I've spoken about them before, but I want to speak a little bit about the dealership that sold my mother her Sandero that she has now, and my wife her Renault Clio, which is Rawlinson's in Bury St Edmunds.
oh yeah, yeah.
And I tell you what, they're a small dealer in there, but I'm going to shout out specifically to Tom, Becky, Marcus, and Steve that work there. The team, you know who you are. They're just so lovely there. They're so helpful, and every time I go there, it's an absolute joy to see them. Even if something's gone wrong with the car, they've always been great. They've always looked after you. Service department is wonderful. In fact, I forget the name of the lady. I feel really bad about this. But there was a lady there who used to do racing and used to race maestros of all things.
Oh, fantastic!
Exactly. And yeah, I'm gonna have to if I can get the name, I'll pop it on the screen now. But yeah, it's sometimes in these smaller businesses there you get just these people with wealth of knowledge that's so helpful and just so nice and have done some cool things. And yeah, it's such a shame for them because it's something I also want to talk about a little bit. They're losing their Renaults. They are Renault and Dacia, for whatever reason, decided they've looked at a map and gone, well, there is another dealer in Colchester and Ipswich who sell those cars. We're going to take them away from you, even though they're doing great on the numbers, and even they've been doing great with the sales. They've now just got, I think it's MG and Mitsubishi left, and I think they're going to be perhaps opening up into selling more used cars now, which is such a shame because they have been selling Renault there for 20, 30 years, probably more than that. And the thing is, my wife loves her Clio. And when it comes time to replace it, she'd probably want to look at another Clio or another Renault product. But the thing is, she likes the dealer so much there, she doesn't want to go to anybody else. You know, now she's in this position where a loyal customer, you know, my mum would be the same, she had to replace her car, can't go back to a dealership where they've been treated great to buy a product because the manufacturer's decided they're too close to another dealer, even though they're doing good numbers. We've just decided we're just going to stop selling our cars there.
That's mad. I mean, you know, long gone are the days where everybody drove a Ford because every town had a Ford dealer in it.
Yeah.
I love to play Spot the Old Ford Dealer.
Yes.
You know, when you go through, it's basically a hamlet and it's got a filling station or the remnants of a filling station. And the logo is a suspiciously familiar oval.
Yes.
Because they obviously had to take the Ford badges away, but couldn't be bothered to put up a new sign. So just had their logo squidged into the Ford bit.
Yes.
So, but yeah, that's a real shame, especially because I grew up in Bury St Edmunds, so I know Rawlinson's fairly well, like as an entity, and I'm pretty sure one of the lads at school, Jake, he was definitely a Rawlinson. I think might have been related to that family.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really sad because I love when you find these little, tiny little places. There was also, I'm trying to think, Rossiter's. Rossiter's was a very well-known BMW dealer up, I think, technically near King's Lynn, but I think they were basically they were near Sandringham, effectively, where the Queen lived, and they were the AC Schnitzer people, so for the modified BMW parts. And I went there before, and again, tiny little place, like really, really small as car dealers go, but super passionate, really interesting people, like knew their stuff. Like if it had been a car that I was more interested in, I would have happily bought it from them. Because you're right, car dealers these days, good car dealers,
are hard to find.
Very hard to find. And I think it's an unfortunate symptom of a lot of dealerships now having been taken over by very large, typically American companies that try and boil everything down to numbers. And I think they forget that a large part of what is going on is the human experience and human interaction. Because, you know, let's face it, you want to buy a car in 2025, you could buy any car from anywhere, you know. And
in some cases, you don't even have to see it. You can literally get it delivered to your door.
Yeah.
I think Tesla, for all their faults at the moment, that was one thing that they did, wasn't it? Is they you could literally buy a car online and have it delivered to your door, which is kind of a cool idea. I mean, especially if like the cars aren't that much variations in specifications and colour and things like that. It's quite easy to do. If you want to do that, that is great. But it does take away a little bit of the human feeling, doesn't it?
Well, it does. Also, what they're doing very sneakily is they're taking away your ability to haggle.
Yeah.
Because if there isn't a person you're talking to, you know, and let's face it, that's what is usually happening is, you know, you go to your local dealer, And they give you a price. Oh, if you want one of those cars, it's 25 grand. You go, oh, okay, all right, cool. So you drive to the dealer that's 30 miles away and you go, well, I've been offered it for 25. So what can you do? I'll go, I'll do 24 and a half and I'll chuck in some floor mats.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think car companies on the one hand are going, okay, we're going to put an end to that. Also, there's going to be less argument. If the car's just dumped on your driveway, even if maybe there is a little bit wrong with it, you're like, oh, it's stress and hassle and all that.
Exactly, because especially if like the nearest, say, Tesla dealer is 30, 40 miles away, and the reason you've ordered it online, not going to see it, because you just don't have the time, you know, which is what some people think is a good thing for people where perhaps time is money, and, you know, it's something you understand, like going all the way to a dealership, you know, having to send several hours there, talking it over, having the coffees and things like that. I mean, I like that experience personally. That's something I enjoy. But in fact, actually, that is one of the reasons, you know, we went to this dealership. We previously bought another Sandero. Me and my mother went in a car together first, which was because she doesn't do a lot of miles. And I was at the point where for work, I needed a brand new car. So we got what is the first generation we got in the UK, but a second generation Sandero, EG68 JKX for anybody that is wondering. And I won't name the dealer we bought it from because I feel like that's a bit unfair, but I also don't want to stoop that low, but let's just put it like this. We had an awful experience with them in the end. We had some issues with the car, some that they just couldn't resolve. And it ended up where we were talking about taking them to, you know, potentially court and, you know, going into the financial ombudsman about it. What a word to say. And they basically just laughed in our face and said, all right, see you in court then. We don't care. It was that kind of very Essex wide boy attitude. And when we went to Rawlinson with the car, because they're a Renault dealer, Dutch dealer, they could take it on. They treated us so well and looked after us so much, we bought 2 more cars from them.
Yeah, and this is what I find is so fascinating, is that I think a lot of the issues are stemming from, like I said, these big companies deciding, okay, right, all right, you're allowed to spend 15 minutes with a customer on the phone and that's it.
Yeah.
Because we have measured and we have decided this is how long it's going to take you to sell a car. And you're asking somebody to part with a huge amount of money. I mean, you know, a cheap car these days is 20,000 quid. You know, that's a cheap car. You know, an quote unquote ordinary average, you know, entry-level BMW, Mercedes, you know, the 3 Series, C-Class, something like that, you know, is easily 40 to 50,000 pounds, you know, if not more. I mean, crikey, I drove the AMG A45S, 67,000 pounds.
For that's just a little hatchback, isn't it?
Yeah, it's basically a Megane with ideas above its station. It really is. And, you know, this is mega money that they're asking for these cars. So you're like, okay, well, that's fine. But surely part of what you're paying for is this premium experience at dealerships. And simply put, it's not being delivered. And I find this so frustrating. And there are so many businesses. This is not a uniquely car thing at all, where I think if you just had a little bit more sympathy and understanding and time for your fellow man, it would actually work out better for business.
This is something that grates me intensely. I mean, have you noticed, for instance, how hard it is when you call most larger businesses to get to speak to somebody on a phone, or even if they have a phone number at all, which isn't a live chat now. Everything is live chat with some kind of AI assistant starting it first. And if you do manage to get through on the phone, you've got to kind of like go, and please say your next option. Who do you want to see? And then they tell you all the ways that you can do it online, and which haven't worked, by the way. And you spend about 5 minutes where they just basically don't want to let you have a call about these things. I mean, in 2017, I first started noticing this happening. And this was right around the time I was doing a little work for the RAC, doing their renewals and their customer service over the phones. In the January time, when I just started the job, there was a lot more leeway in actually speaking to customers and helping them through, and then, you know, making sure that they got the best customer service experience that they could, and solving their issues and doing the kind of things that actually, as a customer, you think, do you know what? I was treated so well by Will on the phone, who spent half an hour with me going through everything, making sure I was happy, you know, that I'm going to keep renewing my breakdown cover with them every year because their customer service is brilliant. And it went from about April, May time, you have limits on the amount of time you can spend on the phone. You have limits on the amount of time you can do it in a wrap-up, which is what you do after calls. And that's where you'd be sending emails and actually, getting people through to departments. And the worst thing they did is they said, you are no longer allowed to do warm transfers. Do you know what cold transfers and warm transfers are when it comes to telephony?
Not a clue, darling.
So a warm transfer is when you are an agent and you are transferring somebody through to another department, and you would actually speak to the person you're transferring them through and go, okay, this is Miss Miggins. She's had a problem with XYZ. She now needs to go down to the breakdown department because the car's actually broken down. She's at the side of the road, blah, blah. This is what's happened. This is the story. She's already passed all the security checks and everything. This is her. Here she is. Yeah. That's how most people want when they transfer, want to be done. It ended up going, you cold transfer me, just go, okay, yeah, all right, we're just going to send you through now. And it's like, click, and they just go through. They get put sometimes to a menu screen, almost have to get back to the same thing again. And you have to, as a customer, you have to tell the story again, go over everything again. And sometimes because of the strain they put on you, you're not allowed that time in wrap-up, as they call it, to write the notes and make sure that the next agent that is dealing with them has the ability to deal with them properly. And it was how by August time, I quit that job halfway through the shift. I couldn't take it anymore because not only was the pressure immense for you as somebody working there to meet all these targets, but it was just you ended up finding more people get on the phone shouting to you and being horrible because they were being treated like pieces of dirt, basically, through their call systems.
So I'm probably allowed to say this now, but I had, obviously when I started my channel, my Lotus Evora 400. And it is no secret whatsoever that the car was quite problematic.
Yes.
I worked out, I think, that during the first year I had it, it spent a quarter of its time being worked on. And I think Lotus should have considered themselves very, very fortunate that at the time, having just started a channel, I had lots of spare time. So taking the car back to the factory, which is what we wound up doing a lot of the time, was effectively, something that I could get done. It was inconvenient, but I could do it. It wasn't like I was trying to also work this around a normal, 9-to-5 job or whatever, which would have made things very, very difficult. The local dealer, which was Stratton Motor Company, they did have courtesy cars, but not very often, and you had to pay for them. Which was kind of, again, to me, like, hang on a minute, I've never bought a new car in my entire life. I've spent nearly £70,000 on this thing. It's broken, and I'm being told I've got to pay for a courtesy car. Like, I took my mum's old Porsche in for service, and they just give you a courtesy car included in the price. And I've only spent £600 with them.
Yeah, sorry, that my dad, some people may know about this. There was a BMW recall for the F11s and probably the other 3 Series and all the ones around that time which used the 2-litre diesel engines because they were having issues with the EGR where they're basically causing the vehicles to catch fire, apparently. And yeah, he brought that in. This is a 10-year-old car almost at this point with 70,000 miles perhaps. And they not only they replace all the bits for free. I mean, I know they have to. It's a safety recall. But they treated him nicely and they gave him a courtesy car for the day, a little Mini of some sort, which I think he kind of enjoyed. And that was it. No charge for that. So if they can do it with a free repair, you'd like to think Lotus could do it for your £70,000, whatever you said it was, 60, 70 grand new car.
Yeah. One of the reasons I decided ultimately to sell the car, I didn't want to, I never wanted to. The supercharger failed. And it was convenient because I was actually due to go to the dealer anyway to have some new wheels put on the car. I'd lent it to a friend of mine, and when I got it back, it didn't feel right. Anyway, long story short, we took it to the dealer, and I said, look, I know I'm here for something, but can you just give it a listen? It doesn't feel or sound right at all. And I thought it was the MAF sensor because they had a very well-known issue of MAF sensors going. It goes, MAF sensor goes, your car will run terribly,
Oh, yeah.
But it wasn't the MAF sensor, it was the supercharger. And it was this classic thing of, they told me in the end nothing was really that wrong with it, but they replaced all the internals of the supercharger just to be sure. You're like, yeah, okay, sure, okay, you did that just in case, right? All right. I mean, they showed me the 2 parts of the supercharger, the 2 screws were like, the amount of play in them was enormous.
How many miles on this at this point?
26,000, 2.5-year-old car. So And had it not happened in warranty, that would have been an over £7,000 repair bill I'd have had to pay easily. So the car broke down on the Friday afternoon, and I couldn't get in touch with Lotus. They'd gone home. They go home on Friday afternoon. I couldn't get in touch with the supplying dealer, which is JCT 600 in Leeds. They weren't picking up the phone. Stratton didn't have a courtesy car available, and that I do not blame them for. I was not there for repair work officially. It was a very unexpected thing, but also my car was not fit to drive. So I said, okay, can you run me to the local enterprise in Norwich, where I hired myself a Hyundai i40 Estate for a week, because they said a week should be enough time to get the problem fixed, for £180. Right? When the problem was then solved and the car was back, I said to Lotus, can you do something for me to compensate me for this? And they said, well, not really. I said, can you cover the service or something that was due? They're like, no, sorry, no. Like, okay. So I phoned JCT, who I'd got the car from, and bearing in mind, £68,000 I'd spent with them, cash. Do you know what I was told?
What were you told?
You haven't been bringing it to us for servicing, so you're not our problem. All right? And I was just outraged, absolutely outraged. Thought, that is your approach. You're like, I have spent the biggest sum of money on anything in my entire life with you guys. It's broken in a quite significant way. I'm asked, it's not like I went down to Enterprise and got myself a Ferrari for the week and I want £2,000 to cover that. I got a Hyundai i40, 180 quid. Like, and JCT 600 that year turned over £1 billion.
Now, meanwhile, didn't you have a thing, if I remember this correctly, with the McLaren that you borrowed where it almost tried to do a Matt Armstrong on you, and another dealer who had previously worked in it, but mentioned they said they weren't sure it was them, but didn't they just fix it all anyway or something? Am I wrong?
Yeah, so I'll cover that in a second, because that's actually an example of good customer service. So with the Lotus, I'd had a few instances with it where it had been in for stuff that really should have been quite basic, and it just took ages. Now, the customer services guy there was absolutely amazing. He was brilliant. He did everything he could to try and make me happy as a customer. But it was very obvious that his hands were tied, that he just couldn't do anything. And in the end, it got to the point where I would phone him up and be like, look, is anything happening? He's like, no. And in the end, I'd just say, would it help if I wrote a really, really shirty email to you stating how unpleased I am and how basically I'm going to throw my toys out of my pram and I'm going to reject the car if it doesn't get sorted? And he would go, it might help actually, yeah. So in the end, that's what I would do, being like, look, I'm going to address it to you and it's going to say some horrible stuff, but we both know we're doing it to get a result.
It shouldn't have to get to that.
It shouldn't have to get there. It transpired later. Okay, this will kill you, right? It transpired later that the new boss of the company had put in place a policy whereby any warranty work or any goodwill over a certain amount had to have his direct approval. The limit he set was £10.
You're joking.
No.
What?
Yeah. Anything more than £10 worth of work had to be approved by the CEO directly. This is why so many of my issues took so long, because he was such a penny-pinching miser who'd come from big companies where, in a big company where you make hundreds of thousands or millions of cars a year, if you save 10 quid on every car, that's a big difference, right? But Lotus were making hundreds of cars a year. So you save 500 quid in each car, you haven't really fixed anything. He was just there to get the company looking nice and healthy so that it could then be sold. That's it. But yeah.
Speechless.
Mm-hmm.
Speechless.
Yeah. The McLaren one, I'm going to have to Google the name of it. There was two companies involved. So this is when I borrowed my friend Guy's 720S, and a bolt came out of it, and basically one of the suspension bolts came out during a drive. Borrowed it from a friend, was driving home, and at the roundabout, the steering just went a bit funny. And the whole thing went very, very wrong. There's a whole video on what happened. And basically, the car had an incident about a year earlier, and it needed some repair work done to it. The majority of the repair work had been done by a company called Chartwell's of Derby, I believe it is. But because it had then been off the road for so long, it also required a service, and that was done by my old friends, McLaren Manchester. Now, people tend to get McLaren and I a bit mixed up because they just think I hate McLarens, and I really don't. What I was always upset about is the way that certain McLaren dealers treated their customers, and how McLaren themselves then also didn't really do anything to encourage better behaviour. And there's a very, very famous incident with myself and McLaren Manchester that's basically, I think, become internet legend. However, the service department at Manchester did actually try quite hard to do things right. But, as is often the case, their hands are tied. And many, many times I've found this, many times where either I or someone I know has bought a car from a dealership and it's come out with a problem, and you go, how the hell did the techs miss this? Well, the answer is very simple. The techs didn't miss it. The techs knew about it. The techs flagged it and raised it, and somebody else said to them, don't do it, because it's going to cost money and we think that we can get away with it. This happened with my first 430 Scuderia, which I bought from Dick Lovett Ferrari of Swindon for £175,000. When I test drove the car, it was knocking. I said about it, they said it will be fixed. When I went to pick the car up, I said, what was it? And they said, oh, it's the sound of stones hitting the bottom of the car, because you're buying a Scuderia, it doesn't have carpets, you just hear them more clearly. And at that point, I knew, right, you haven't done anything, have you? I guarantee you that's not the sound of stones hitting the bottom of the car. I know what blooming stones hitting the bottom of the car sounds like, and that's not what that noise was. That was a suspension knock. Took it out, yeah, knocky suspension. Later found out the chap who was working on the car, he was a fan of the channel, he was a lovely guy, and he told me when they had PDI'd the car, when they got it in, they knew that the suspension was a problem, and they just elected not to do anything about it. They were told not to fix it. The McLaren thing, both companies had touched the suspension. Manchester had touched the suspension last. And when you phone a company and you say, by the way, I was driving a car that you worked on like last month. This is not like you touched it 2 years ago, anything could happen. Like, you worked on this car last month and a bolt fell out of the suspension. This could have caused an enormous accident. I was really lucky. It chose to come out when I was basically at about 20, 30 mile an hour and where there was no other traffic around, because when something went wrong and I went to brake, the car went onto the wrong side of the road because the geometry at that point was, of course, doing whatever it wanted to. So I could get it safely recovered and everything. Manchester, I thought, would have just been like, oh my word, like, crikey, this is awful, like, you know, don't worry, we'll get the car picked up from your house and this and the other, and we'll get it sorted out and all this. Because, of course, it's all complicated by the fact it's not my car. Chartwell's had worked on the car before. Now, there was a part of the suspension which had been taken off to do some work that Manchester had done, and I never, ever got a definitive answer from people whether, basically, it was the... I think it was the lower arm where the bolt came off, but the upper arm had stuff replaced, and nobody could agree whether to get to the upper arm, you have to take the lower one off or not. Some people said to me, there's no way you can get to the upper arm without taking the lower one off, and other people saying like, no, you definitely can. So you're like, okay, this is not helpful at all. But regardless, Manchester had touched it last and worked on that area of the car, didn't want anything to do with it, nothing at all. Chartwell's couldn't do enough. Absolutely amazing. I was so impressed because they said, look, there's every chance that it's absolutely nothing that we did. But there is a chance that it is something that we did. So just because there is a tiny chance that maybe we cocked up on this one, we're going to sort everything, fix everything, go through every single thing that we did, check all of our tools, make sure that, maybe something isn't mismeasuring or whatever, and go through and sort it and fix it and make it right, and then fix all the consequential damage as well. Really impressed with them. Really, really impressed.
Yeah. And that is good customer service for you. It makes such a difference. And it's the kind of thing that people like yourself will end up singing their praises of, and then that might just drive more customers to their door. But when you sing your dislike of people, a lot of people are going to know. And, they might think twice about going to a place like that. So you should be careful with as somebody who runs a small business, to me, my customer service is everything. If I didn't have good customer service, I'd have nothing. Did I tell you this? I don't actually advertise. I've got my Google listings for what I do, but other than that, it's all word of mouth for me, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, well, especially because you've got a business where you're dealing directly with people. So, if somebody's got a problem in Scotland, they're not likely to really come to you.
No.
Because there isn't a particular service that you offer that, only you can do it.
Yes, exactly.
So I think word of mouth is very, very powerful. And of course, for our good friend Ben, who's setting out in his new business venture, again, because it's geographically restricted. Somebody calls him, it's got a car, they want cleaning in France, he's not going to be able to do it.
No.
But you get people that are in the area you work in, get them happy with your service, and like you say, they'll do all of your advertising for you.
Absolutely.
Which is wonderful. It's why I encourage people, if you've had a good experience with a business, tell everybody that you know. It's the same here on YouTube. We can exist by your good graces. If you enjoy what you're watching, what you're listening to and all that, then tell your friends. If you don't, tell us. We can't get everything right. We won't do everything perfectly. No. But we do try.
We're just men. We're just normal men.
just blokes.
We're just blokes.
Did I ever tell you about Mum's Mercedes experience?
I don't think you did.
Oh, okay. So this is one of the problems that we're going to have on the podcast, right? Is I worry now that I'm going to start just wheeling out the same old stories.
Do you know what we've got the problem of as well is we talk a lot off camera about things, and that muddles it up to the point where we have no idea if we've actually talked about it before on camera or off camera. So we're very sorry if we end up potentially repeating ourselves sometimes. It's because, as I said, we are but men.
We are sorry. We talk a lot of nonsense. As long as you enjoy it, during the war.
During the war.
So
in the 90s with my Amiga.
Yeah. My cousin had an Amiga.
My brother had an Amiga. He ended up putting, I think, some extra. He was being a naughty boy. He was downloading music on the internet in the early days before Metallica and Napster all started fighting. Ooh. And he put in, I think, a special kind of sound card so he could convert his MP3s and make them play and then put them on CDs stuff. He was on the cutting edge of that.
Oh yeah, your brother was a pioneer.
He will know he was more of a Sony.
Oh God, that's such a dad joke. Oh my word. So this would be late 90s. Things have been doing well for Mum and Dad at work, and so it was decided that we had joined the middle classes, therefore one of us had to drive a Mercedes. I was 8 and my sister was 5, so we were out. So it was down to Mum and Dad. I can't remember what Dad was actually driving at the time. It was probably something for work. He usually drove vans, to be honest. But anyway, decided that Mum was going to have a nice car. The A-Class had just come out, which is quite a cool car. And to this, I haven't driven one. I haven't driven an original A-Class.
Oh, you haven't driven one, and yet Doug DeMuro could import one to the States.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, I want to drive an original A-Class. There's just something I think now quite cool about them.
I used to go out in one occasionally. A friend owned one. It was a T-Reg one, and it was kind of a very snotty green one.
Oh yeah,
and it was the only one. It had I think it had green accents in the interior and things as well.
Oh yeah, no, they did do some wild stuff back then.
They did, and it was a nice little car. I was a bit too tall for it from memory, but a nice car.
Yeah, I could see you in an A2.
An Audi 8, actually I could. I wouldn't have to worry about rust, I just have to worry about corrosion.
Yeah, I guess someone's offered me their A2 to drive. It's got 250,000 miles on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that the little 1.4 TDI?
It is.
Yes, those engines, they may be small, but they are mighty.
Oh, yes. That's back in the days of diesels. Like, we were talking about diesels today because film the Golf. Like, I think people forget, like, you didn't buy a diesel for economy. You definitely didn't buy a diesel for power. You bought a diesel because it just didn't stop.
Yep, that was the same with my old Volkswagen Transporter van, the 1.9 TD, that had about 172,000 miles when we sold it. We never had any major issues with that at all. I mean, it blew up on the owner that bought it off us. I don't know how. I think he says his son probably drove it a bit too hard. And again, I drove it quite hard. I once got a whole 80 miles an hour out of that thing, I'll have you know.
Whoa.
I know, on a racetrack, of course. I think it was Castle Combe.
Well, the action day.
Yeah, exactly. On the action day. But yeah, that was one of those things. They just went forever.
Yeah. No, they did. That's the thing with old diesels. Like, the engine would be fine. The car would disintegrate around it, but the engine would keep going.
It's like how you see those videos. I think is it like in like Russia, maybe Poland, maybe Africa, places like that, where they've got these old beaten up like larders and Mercedes W123s and whatever it is, all the diesel engines, and they're falling apart. They're literally being welded back together with random bits of like pipe and bar and things at the engine. It's perfect.
I love that. Bit of a bushcraft motoring.
Yes, absolutely. And I thought, well, to be honest, if that is kind of the scenario that you're in, and that is kind of like the availability to the tools that you have around in the resources that you have, I think some of that is phenomenal engineering, in my opinion. And I think they're up there with some of the best mechanics because they've worked in hard positions and had to make their cars run, and they do.
No, I think it's a very, very cool thing. Again,
Oh, absolutely.
Often overlooked part of the automotive sphere because we're fortunate enough that we live in a place with, dealers and service packages and things like that. But like, no, there's a lot to be said for cars that are just like kept together because you got no choice. That's it. That's your car. Like, you got to keep it going. Tell you, I've always got a bit of a guilty pleasure for listening to videos of diesel engines trying to start in like minus 40.
Sounds like me sounds like me trying to build myself to get up out of bed in the morning, honestly. But your mum's Mercedes.
Mum's Merc. So A-Class had come out. Dad said, take yourself down to the Mercedes dealership in Bury St Edmunds, and which was the big city. We were living in the sticks at the time. And go look at this new A-Class. Find yourself one that you like, and then basically I'll go in and beat him up for a deal. Cool, fine, done. So Mum goes in, has a look, comes back. He's all right, good news, bad news. Okay, what's the good news? Good news, I found the car I like. Okay, what's the bad news? Bad news, it's not an A-Class, it's an ML. Which is their dirty, great big 4x4. And Dad was like, oh, great. It's only triple the price of the thing I sent you in to look at. But, never mind. We are doing quite well at work. Dad worked on building sites, so he figured that actually the car could be used by him as well, which meant he could kind of justify it. I think we were talking probably about 40-odd thousand pounds back then, which of course today doesn't sound like much for a Mercedes 4x4, but then was a hell of a lot of money. And he said, all right, let's go have a look. And they went in, I think they worked out it was the ML320, I'm sure it was, that they went for.
Was it the petrol or the diesel?
Petrol.
So that was the V6, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was actually, I think it was the ML320Ds and the petrol ones. I think they're the most common engines at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they couldn't decide between the blue or the green. And they had like a blue one, I think, in the showroom. They said, well, we like it, but we're not sure, maybe we like the green more. We really want to see one before we commit to this. So the guy in there said to Dad, well, we do actually have a green one in here, but it's in the workshop. So if your wife wants to wait here, you can come in and have a look at it. and he basically sort of said to them like, well,
why couldn't she come in?
Yeah, right. And I was like, this is where I learned the definition of the word sexism. And I suspect it's because, remember, this was the 90s, so I think the place was probably still full of, nudie calendars and things like that, as many garages, even main dealers were back then. And, they, so in the end, I think Dad using some choice language, told them that as it was going to be his wife's car and she was involved in the decision, that maybe they could drive the car out to them if she wasn't going to be allowed in their workshop. Because basically it's like, look, if my wife's not good enough for your workshop, my money's not good enough for your dealership.
Yeah.
So fix
absolutely.
it. We're going to go. And they got it. They bought it. It was an awful car. I remember, even though nobody cared about fuel back then, it was still a problem because it just drank so much of it. Dad kept having to fill the damn thing up. Like, I don't think it could go to London and back without needing a fill up.
Wasn't the build quality horrendous as well?
It was awful. Absolutely awful. I think they were South American made.
I was going to say, I don't think they were made in Germany. In fact,
Definitely not. No.
I've got a fun story about this, and I've mentioned from the podcast that I used to work at Halfords doing audio, and I remember I once went to remove a radio from the middle of the dashboard, and the entire center console came with the radio. It just still kept, so all the buttons, all the center state. It just came, and I disconnected and done all the radio release key tools, pulled it in. The whole thing came with it. And I just thought to myself, I am not buying one of these cars ever. No. In fact, actually, my E46 was a bit like that. Anybody that's owned an E46 and had to remove the trims that run across the middle of the dashboard will know that the clips that they push into are hopeless bits of plastic that always break.
Yep.
And mine had been going a bit bad. And I remember one day I was accelerating, and this was only a 318i, so it had maybe 118 horsepower at most, and a car of about 1,500 kilograms to move. And I remember I kind of did a little launch from the roundabout, and the whole dashboard came flying out towards me because it hadn't followed and for whatever reason the radio also flew out, and the gauge pod as well, because it all just cracked and broken over the cluster, also flew forward, and the instrument cluster started going towards me. So I essentially I'll just go, oh, this car's so fast it can disassemble itself.
Did I tell you about my Ferrari depth charge?
No.
Oh, this is a cracker. So the Ferrari California T, Portofino M, all feature the same basic design, the same chassis, with a folding hardtop. And in the boot, it's got a flat load lip. Now, with those cars, I think with the first one, the California, I think it has to be stationary to do the roof. Because it was one of these weird quirks of legislation where, like, I think one of the lights was on the boot or something like that. Anyway, whatever the reason, it had to be stationary. They then fixed this, so you could then do it on the move. Thing is, though, to get the roof in, obviously the rear comes up and then the roof folds down, packs in, quite neat. Very clever mechanism. Right, it's very similar to a Mercedes SL, BMW Z4 when they did the hardtop, all that sort of stuff, right? And the thing that's unique about the Ferrari is that the whole boot has to move out of the way. And remember, it has a flat load lip. I think I was on test of the new Portofino M, and I bought some bottles of drink because it was a nice day, and I was going up a hill and decided I wanted the roof down, so I pushed the button for the roof, the boot opens, and then a bottle of Pepsi Max rolled out the back all the way down this massive hill. I just thought, oh no, I just dropped it out of the back of a car like a depth charge. And I just thought, oh my God. And it rolled off into a field somewhere. Luckily, nobody was there. I completely forgot. And I was like, oh my word. Because I was pressed this, and all of a sudden I get distracted. I'm like, the hell is that in the road? That looks like a bottle of, oh no, that's me. Like, I was like, can you imagine if somebody had been behind me at that point? I did Dick Dastardly someone's car.
Oh, that's great.
I do love stuff when stuff like that happens with cars. I remember when Laurie, I still got it, had his 106. And we wanted to put these fancy gauges on. I can't remember what they're called, Hawks or something like that. And they had a rev counter, which is the 1.1 106 did not have.
It did not. I upgraded my 1.1 106 to have a rev counter as well at one point.
Yeah, nice white gauge and very sporty looking.
That's what I put in mine.
Right. But when we put it back in, I think we must have put one of the connectors in upside down because he then went to indicate and the entire dash blinked. Like every light was blinking. It's like, okay, all right. Yeah, whoops. Put that back in. Now it all works just fine. Yeah. His mum's, we did for one of the early videos, we did a video on his mum's 308. And a 308, again, it's one of these cars, you're like the Terminator, things will break on it, but it will keep going. Like it won't stop. Like things will fail on it, switches will go, electrics will stop, but like it'll just keep passing MOTs. The list of advisories will get longer and longer and longer, but the really important stuff will just keep going. And the interior of it was an absolute state. I mean, what happened in there you didn't want to know. So we took it to the local scratch wash, ran it through, got certainly our £20 worth, and then decided to film with it. It was a bit of a treat. About 2 weeks later, I saw him with it, and the interior was utterly wrecked. And I was like, what the hell happened? Like, how did your mum make such a mess of it in such a short time? And he's like, she had open a thing of, I think, condensed milk. She was trying to make herself a cup of tea in the car and basically got jolted and she put condensed milk all over the car. And it's like, oh, really? Like, oh, we spent 20 quid cleaning that.
It's like when you see those builders' vans where like a thing of paint has exploded in the back, and someone's been sat in the van or something, and then the whole person is covered in paint. It's hilarious. It's funny we talk about advisories and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
Early today when we filmed my golf video, I was telling you about my Peugeot 106 that I bought that my friend crashed while I was in it as well. And I still, for some reason, decided, that'd be a good idea to buy and do up. Some of the advisories on that one. So it did get through. In fact, actually, it failed initially because it had some issues with corrosion and it had some issues with no travel on the parking brake and just emission stuff. But this car was cobbled back together on a shoestring and really shouldn't have been on the road. So we had some interesting advisories there. We had, obviously, a windscreen has damage, standard thing.
Yeah.
The battery light was coming on and off very randomly. The front inner arch wheel trims were missing. And this is where it starts to get a bit more dodgy here. Offside front tyres cracked and perished. Tie wraps around rear exhaust rubber mounts.
Yep.
When all lights are on and hazards are turned on, telltale lights for the headlamps and rear flogs start to flash on the dashboard but do not affect the lights. So French electrical gremlins. And the best one, which was a you don't say moment, signs this vehicle has been in an accident due to wheel alignment out rear, in brackets, crabbing. If anybody wants to look that up, that's V234DDJ.
So on a fairly well-known website, I've Googled funny MOT advisories. There's some pretty good ones here, like rear wiper blade in poor condition, but the assembly doesn't work anyway. My favourite one, which I will show to my colleague and not read to you. That made the news, that one.
I think that is one of the reasons why, is it the DVSA or DVL or something like that? Whoever does all the, stands for the MOT, we're bringing it in that testers, I don't think, are allowed to put their own custom things.
Not anymore. Not after that.
No, that was after that. And also, like, if there are things like there are garages getting fined and losing their license for those things. Stuff that perhaps years ago would have been a funny thing if you brought your mate's car in and said, driver looks like XYZ or driver has rubbish CD and CD player.
Yeah.
Those things.
Cooler shaker CD advisory.
Exactly. Those are the kind of things that now they're all online. Everybody can see. And so, you've lost a bit of fun. Oh, honestly, it's the woke internet's gone mad, isn't it, James?
Someone's got an advisory here that says it's a Citroen 2CV.
don't know why, but that really tickles me.
I've never driven a 2CV.
I'm going to have to get a Hubnut to bring his down if it'll make it.
Well, funnily enough, I went and met up with him recently, and he was driving someone else's 2CV, and I was following it, having a seizure because the lean angles this thing can adopt at about 25 mile an hour.
Yeah.
Well, I did know a bloke who bought himself a 2CV, and he's like, "Do you know what I did with it? Do you know what I did with it? Drove it across the field with some eggs." It's one of those things. It's like the Citroen 2CV specifically. You're like, it's the one fact that everybody knows is like, oh yeah, it's built so that it can drive across the farmer's field with some eggs and none of them break. So he's like, yeah, but no one does that though, do they? Really, not anymore. So he's like, but I wanted to check, so I did it.
I think Mr. Hubnut once, maybe done a couple of videos now with one of his Citroens. I can't remember which one it is, but it's the one that had the Citroen suspension, and he actually did the thing driving around, I think, a test track with a wheel missing, and it actually coped absolutely fine because it could self-level. I think if a wheel was taken off, was one of the Citroen
correct.
selling things. Wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's a Citroen SM, was it?
So there's a few cars that can do that. So very famously, Charles de Gaulle only ever drove around in Citroen products because during his assassination attempt, stories vary as to how many of the tyres were punctured, but the number quoted is between 2 and 4. But the car stayed true and level.
Yes.
So, and if it had been anything else, it would have almost certainly lost control. So after that, he only ever drove around in Citroen products because that suspension is cool. Have you ever driven anything with that suspension?
No, but my taxi driver, good old Nigel, bless him, who used to take me from my home to my school, which is about an hour away, and he had Citroen Xantias and Citroen Picassos. So the last one he had was the Xantia, kind of like the little hatchback thing, which was almost like the saloon, and that had the suspension. And yeah, I remember that just being very, very comfortable.
Oh.
I think under certain situations, I don't know if people agree, maybe in the back, it used to make me a bit car sick sometimes. But overall, it was pretty comfortable. Though that could have been because he was playing Radio 2 loudly with the heat up in the summer as well. That could also be it.
That's probably what it was.
That's probably what it is. My dad's a little bit the same. He's nearly 75, and you haven't seen the battle yet, but we have a battle over the thermostat here because I have days where I'll walk in and it's just like you've stepped off the plane. It's that same feeling of going, good God. But he's sitting there in the corner, a bit cold today. I've got my coat on, and I'm like, I've got 2 fans on me, and I'm in a t-shirt. Please, just
my other half's grandfather made it to 97.
Oh wow!
And opening the door of his was like opening the oven door.
Yeah, my sister-in-law Georgia, she used to work in a care home, and she would say that it was just like 30 degrees all year round, even in the summer. It was just the heating was on.
Yeah,
and I mean, I get it. You understand it. And old people, they're not moving about. They need to keep warm, but. Oh, when you're
not lizards.
No, they're not. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I went to an animal sanctuary in Brentwood the other day, and he would have liked the temperature in the reptile enclosure. Honestly,
yeah, it'd been great. I remember I found my nan once in her living room, like in a coat, hugging the radiator, and I was like, "You cold, Nan?" No. Like, you are showing some signs of being cold. Like, is the boiler working? Because we can get someone out to test it. She's just literally there, just hugging the thing. It's like, I think you can make medium rare at this point in time.
It was great. My grandparents, as well, they used to have like an old electric kind of fire as well. Even in the summer, they'd have it on. Be sitting down there. Yeah, it's what
get your
they
money's
did.
worth.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it was back in the time where old people could afford heating. Moving swiftly on.
So I think that probably brings us to the end of our rant before we do get ourselves in some actual trouble.
I know.
Ant to kind of steer this good shit back onto course.
I know. Ant will be watching this, and we just need to insert a photo now. Ant going,
cringing, but it's his fault for being old and broken.
Exactly. He's going to be sitting in front of the heating next being. Does he complain about getting cold?
No.
Oh, he's not there yet. He's not there yet then.
Not yet.
We'll let you all know when he started complaining about getting cold, because that means he is getting elderly.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be understandable for him to get, a little bit chilly on it.
I mean, a man of his age.
Well, yeah, and he's of Caribbean origin, so like, he's meant for sunnier climes than we get here. But you get this when you go to the States, like when we go to California or whatnot, and it will be 20-something degrees in December, and they'll be there going, they'll be reaching for a jacket, and you'll be like, what's wrong with you? Like, this is shorts and t-shirt weather. I
was about to say, it's 14 degrees at the moment, and I'm sweating one out, and I've got just a t-shirt and jeans on.
Yeah, we've both been out. We had coats on at the start there. We're like, no, these are coming straight off.
Exactly.
Like, we're basting in these.
Exactly. Man's is hot.
Oh my God, that's a reference. Oh dear. All right. Okay. Thank you, everybody. We promise we'll try and resume normal service next week, if there is such a thing, at the Radiator Arms. And please send us in your topic suggestions. Don't forget, we do have an email address, and I know it works because we got a whole email last week.
Oh,
yeah, a whole one.
Wow.
So it's no, not a quarter, not a half, not even 2/3. We got a whole one. And that's landlord@theradiatorarms.com. So as ever, it's a thank you from Will, a thank you from me. Nothing from Ant, really, because he's not here. That's his fault. But yeah, from the pair of us, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I think that actually worked all right.
I think that was the good laugh. I think
Good
people
rant.
enjoy that.